Well, hello everybody. This is Matt DiMeo, sometimes known as Z Maestro, because I'm the founder of the Maestro Method. The Maestro Method is a series of mental power tools that give people the seemingly superhuman ability to learn anything and everything faster and better and retain it. And today, we are going to talk about training that sticks. How to train your people so they stay trained. And I'm going to cover a magic 4-step system that always works. Now it's funny, when people who have known me for a long time frequently will refer to me as a trainer because they've seen me speak in front of large audiences. And today I want to make a real distinction between training that is actual training that will stay with somebody for a long time and speaking in front of an audience. By the way, I have a special treat for you. If you stay to the end of this session, I have got something really cool to give you. And this is something that'll help you become profitable immediately. And you have not seen anything like this before. But again, when you stick around to the end, you'll see exactly what I've got for you. But let me ask you this. I came across this in one of the recent Sunday papers here in the Tampa Bay Times. And it's a comic strip, Rose is Rose. And I want to kind of go through this with you and see if you can relate to this. Here's the dad talking to the little kid in her first snowball fight and says, "All right, take your time to make a nice spherical shape. Cup your hands. Press firmly while twisting in opposite directions." And then mom says, "Check the weight and balance. Always keep a few cradled in your other arm." And dad, "Visualize your objective and let it fly. And if you run out of snowballs," mom says, "grab your scarf, wrap it around your face, and stay down." And the little kid, who's confused by this massive amount of philosophical and technical information, says, "Gee, that's a lot to remember." And mom and dad go, "Well, we can go over it again." Meantime, the kid that's in the snowball fight with the other one says, "I'm cold, I'm bored, I'm only staying for the hot cocoa they serve after every snowball skirmish." Is this the way you've been trained? Or is this the way you're training other people by filling them up with so much information, not giving them a chance to actually throw the snowballs, not giving them a chance to do any of this stuff, just giving them all this information here, do this, do that, do the next thing, and then at the end, you've got no results to show for it? Have you conducted training where afterwards you wonder why nobody's putting numbers on the scoreboard, or why your results haven't changed, or why you've got to keep training people over and over again? You know, what a lot of people call training really is motivational talking. I consider it to be talking about training. You're sitting in a classroom, or you're in a lecture hall, or somebody's droning on and on. Even if they're exciting and fun to listen to, they're talking and showing you slides and giving you information. Folks, in my opinion, this is not training. In fact, this session that you're on right now, this is really not training. Let me compare it to what I mean. You know, when we talk about seminars, they're not training. Look at this poor fella. He says, "I just came back from a 3-hour seminar on maintaining sales energy levels, and I am exhausted." How many of you have ever felt like that? Compare that to what real training is. What do they do in the military? Well, they certainly aren't just giving you a bunch of philosophy and lecture and classroom stuff. Where are you? You're actually doing it. You know, I took a look at the word train, and it reminded me of the other kind of train. You know, and here's a guy laying on his back with a giant set of train wheels, and it says, "I don't always bench press but when I do, I train." I thought that was pretty cute, but it got me thinking about the word itself, train. And so rather than just going to a dictionary, I looked it up in my thesaurus. And I wanted to sometimes you can understand a word better when you look at other words that have the same meaning. Look at this. Over on the left-hand column, you've got caravan, convoy, line, track. Further down, you've got chain, column. Look all the way to the right. Succession, sweet, tail, thread, progression in the third column. And so when you take a look at the words on this list, what you're seeing is that it's one thing that follows the next, that follows the next, that follows the next. So if you're not training like that, it's not surprising you are unlikely to be seeing anything in the way of results. Now, I'm not talking about just training salespeople or physical training. We can be talking about anything that you need to teach somebody else how to do where they become competent at it, where you are transferring a skill from you to them. Here is the magic 4-step system that always works. It is tell, show, try, do. Tell, show, try, do. If you're taking notes, I'm going to encourage you to jot that down. We're going to go into each one of these things, and you'll understand very clearly why if you go through this 4-step system with somebody, you transfer the skill to them, and now they are truly trained. Tell. What you want to do first is kind of like what the mom and dad were doing in the snowball fight in that comic strip earlier. You're going to tell them what you want them to do. You're going to give people an overview of, all right, here's what you're going to learn how to do. Here's why you're going to do it. Here's what you're going to be able to do when we're done. Compare that to people who just jump into the training and you're really not sure where it's going. You're not really sure what to listen for. So at the beginning, before you start trying to give the skill, tell them, all right, here's what we're going to learn. Here's where the beginning, the middle, and the end is. Here's what you're going to be able to do at the end. Cool. Next, show them. Hey, there's a big difference between telling somebody and showing them. Don't just tell them, let's show them. Right? As a matter of fact, you've been doing this as a little kid, right from kindergarten and first and second grade when we used to do show and tell. Show and tell and show. It's a very effective way of getting a story out there to somebody. Visual aids and actually demonstrating what's going to take place is hugely impactful. Then, give them a chance to try it themselves. Now, if there's a frustrating part of this process, this is where it is. And I came across this cute slide, and it says, the person who doesn't make mistakes is unlikely to make anything. And I love the fact that the word person is misspelled. That's clever. You see, the word try really is an excuse for failure in advance. You've got to let people try it. And, you know, when we talk about try and comparing that to do, think about this famous scene from Star Wars. A lot of people reference this, where Yoda says to Luke after they crash their little craft in the swamp, he says in his Yoda voice, do or do not. There is no try. And then below that, there's a quote from the Bible, from James 1:22. Do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourselves. Do what it says. So often, we'll be in a lecture where we're telling somebody, maybe you can relate to this, your parents wagging their finger at you going, I told you, you don't listen to me. I've told you 1,000 times. Certainly, those are the types of things that people can relate to. There is a huge difference between trying something out and your ability to do it. You know, I want to talk about this here for just another quick moment. Try is an excuse for failure in advance. If you were to ask a woman, do you love your husband? Maybe she's in a difficult marriage. And you say to her, do you love your husband? And she says, well, I'm trying. When you ask somebody, hey, did you make the sale? Well, I tried. Did you put any numbers on the scoreboard? Well, I'm trying. Try means you didn't do it yet. So, I want to make a real clear distinction between trying something out and being able to do it. You have got to give people the opportunity to try it and make mistakes in order for them to be able to do it. You see, the key is giving them the opportunity to try it out themselves. When learning happens, it's not when you're putting information in. It's not during what you think is the information delivery part, like what's happening right now. Hopefully, I am putting information into you. This is not where your learning takes place. It is only when you get information out of people is where the learning actually takes place. That's why we have tests. And that is why you want to give people to try what it is that you're teaching them to do. And then after they've tried it under a controlled circumstance, then and only then, with your guidance, will they be able to do it, and you've effectively transferred the skill. I want to go back to some of my history and how I was first trained in a variety of different areas. And I want to talk about that this kind of training is real training, is not just for business. It's not just for sales. My very first exposure to personal development was when I was a wrestler back at Nutley High School in Nutley, New Jersey. As a matter of fact, the guy on top there is currently a champion for Nutley's wrestling team. They have a very good team. They've had champions for many, many years there because they've got good coaching. And I can recall the very first day of showing up for practice. Before we ever got out onto the mats, the coach said, "Let me ask you this. You've got two wrestlers that are roughly the same size. They are exactly the same weight because wrestlers compete against each other by weight class. You've got two guys that are the same weight. They know the same moves. They've been through roughly the same amount of training. They know each other's tricks. So let me ask you, why will one wrestler consistently win while the other one will lose?" And the answer was, it has to do with your attitude. But you know the way they trained us? They would say, all right, today we're going to learn how to do takedowns. So they would they would tell us, here's what you're going to learn how to do today, and here's why you're going to need to know this move. Then they would have a couple of the top wrestlers on the team get out onto the mat in front of everybody and show us how they did the move. And then we split up into pairs and practiced that move. And it was a comedy of errors. Hands and sneakers flying in every direction and nobody really knowing what's going on at the beginning. But with the help of the coaches and with the help of the more experienced members of the team, everybody eventually learned how to do the moves. Tell, show, try, do. Years later, my very first full-time job, I was a door-to-door encyclopedia salesperson. Door-to-door sales is probably the most difficult job in the world. And today there is probably no such thing as door-to-door sales anymore. It's illegal almost everywhere. You need licensing and all that stuff. But I used to sell encyclopedias. And this was what Google looked like when it was in paper. And I sold Collier's Encyclopedia. It was printed by the Macmillan Book Publishing Company. And when and it was mostly college kids that for a summer job would learn how to go out there and knock on doors and sell encyclopedias. Now, back in the early 1970s, because I got into this in the summer of 1972, back then, a set of books like that cost more than $500. And the job was to knock on somebody's door, get them to let you in the house, put down all of the spreadsheets and what we called broadsides about the encyclopedias. We had one sample volume with us. And at the end of an hour, get somebody to spend $500. Now, back in 1972, that was the equivalent of thousands and thousands of dollars today. And we had to do that in an hour. And we knew what our numbers were. Knock on 100 doors, 10 people would let you in, 3 people would let you give a presentation, and out of 3 presentations, you would likely sell 1. Now, how did they transfer this pretty sophisticated set of skills to a bunch of college students who were just there for a summer job? And the answer was hot seat training. You see, first we had to memorize a script. Then we would sit in a circle, and one by one we had to recite what we had memorized. And then each day somebody different was in the hot seat where they actually had to do the presentation in a dress rehearsal, if you will, for everybody else that was on the sales team. The sales managers were there, and they would coach and guide and help us through objections we didn't understand the answer to. But this is where we made our mistakes, so that when we got out into the field, we were truly prepared. Hot seat training. So they told us, here's what you're going to learn how to do. Then they showed us, okay, and they would do the presentation for us. Then we would get a chance to try it out. And then when we got out into the field, we were able to do it too. The top people in my group were earning as much as $10,000 in a summertime. That's probably the equivalent of about 50 grand today. Imagine a 19-year-old, 20-year-old, 21-year-old college student making $50,000 in a 12-week period during a summer job. That's what we were doing back in the early 1970s. This system is totally effective. Now, after I left the health club business, or rather after I left the book business, I got into the health club business. And what I found in the health spa business was the exact same system. When somebody was a brand new member, and we would take them out onto the floor, we would show them how to use the equipment. Well, we would go out there with a card, and we would walk them from one piece of equipment to the next. And we would tell them, here is what this piece of equipment is going to do for you. This is the benefit you're going to get. Then we would get on that piece of equipment and use it ourselves to show them the proper technique. Then they got on the equipment, and with very light weights, they would attempt to do what they just saw us do. It was not unusual for them to have bad form, bad posture. They would do something wrong, put their hands or legs in the wrong position, and we were there to correct them. And then, eventually, we didn't need to be there with them anymore because they could do the exercises on their own. We just, as personal trainers, would just keep them monitored and keep them motivated. So, this concept of tell, show, try, do works no matter what field we're talking about. Now, what is it that you want to have somebody trained for? You looking to train a new file clerk? Are you looking to train somebody to do transcription for you? Are you looking to train a home-based business network marketing person? Are you looking to teach somebody telephone skills? It doesn't matter what you need. This system will work for everything from athletics to sales to office work to helping your kids out with their homework. So now that we've talked about what the formula is, let's talk about what the characteristics are to be a truly great trainer. What are the most important personality traits of the best trainers? Well, the first one is you've got to have patience. Look, it's frustrating, especially when somebody's trying things out and they make one mistake after the other. You know what patience really is? I came across this great quote and wanted to include it as one of the slides. Patience is not the ability to wait, but it's the ability to keep a good attitude while waiting. And I wanted to make sure that the person who came up with this quote, or where it came from, got credited here in these slides. That is fantastic. Keep a good attitude while you're waiting. You know, this frequently has been me, and maybe it's you too. I came across this cute comic where the doggy is saying, God, grant me patience. And he waits for a little while. Hurry up! I want it now. And that is very frequently a lot of people's exclamation or prayer. God grant me patience, but give it to me now. All right. So patience, you know patience is a virtue, and indeed it is. It's a hard-won virtue. It's frustrating for you and for them. By the way, when you look at what we're talking about here today, I want you to look at it from two different angles. You conducting the training to teach somebody else and to transfer the skill to somebody else. But also, you, as the student, being trained, how you can get information into your head so that it stays there. The second characteristic is to have a sense of humor. You know, if you could choose one characteristic that would get you through life the best, choose a sense of humor. There is humor in everything, and sometimes it is hard to keep that in mind. But when you do, life goes by a whole lot smoother. The next personality trait is empathy. Now, this is different than sympathy. You know, sympathy is feeling sorry for somebody else, where you're outside of them, kind of looking at them. But empathy is seeing with the eyes of another, listening with the ears of another, and feeling with the heart of another. Boy, I came across that and I went, man, that is it. Ding, bang, zoom. The greatest trainer I ever had, his name was Tom Corbett. He was my mentor. He helped me become the man that I did. And Tom used to tell me that you never know what kind of struggles other people are going through. If you treat everybody like they are in incredible pain, you will almost always be right. Think about this. If you treat other people like they are having pain, you will almost always be right. If you knew somebody was in pain, you would have a different level of patience with them. You would have a different way of speaking to them. You could be kind to them. Remember, everybody you meet is fighting a hard battle. Not new philosophy. Plato said that. And then encouragement. Encourage one another. Again, came across this very cool quote. It says, "Flatter me, and I may not believe you. Criticize me, and I may not like you. Ignore me, and I may not forgive you. But encourage me, and I may not forget you." You know, my mentor, Tom, was fantastic at encouraging me. When I was at my lowest, when I was down and out, he would consistently find things that I was doing right. He would consistently look for the bright spot in me and point those things out to help me get through my struggles. You know, years later, I read a book called The 1 Minute Manager, written by Ken Blanchard and Spencer Johnson. And it says, there was a great quote in there about catching people doing something right. So often, parents and coaches try to catch you doing something wrong. Help people reach their full potential. Catch them doing something right. And when you can catch somebody doing something right and point that out to them, let me tell you, people are hungry for that. It becomes addictive. They will do whatever they have to get the feeling that they get when you caught them doing something right. So again, this magic 4-step system that absolutely always works. Tell, show, try, do. Say it with me. Tell, show, try, do. Tell, show, try, do. Tell, show, try, do. But remember, you will need to continue to drill and rehearse. You know, the best trained athletes in the world, professional baseball players, football players, hockey players, basketball, it doesn't matter the sport. They have been playing that sport since they were little kids. Think about baseball. We've got this cartoon that I came across where the guy's obviously holding the bat upside down. He says, some of the boys forget a few basics during the winter layoff. Well, think about it. These are athletes that have been playing the game maybe since they were in kindergarten and playing t-ball, and then they went to Little League, and then they played in school teams, and then they maybe played in college, and then they got drafted by the semi-pros, and then eventually maybe they made it to the big show. Well, guess what? Every spring they are in training. In between games, they are still receiving coaching and training. And here are the best in the world. People that, some of them make $1 million a week. Some of them make $1 million a day. Hundreds of millions of dollars a year. And yet, they're still being drilled and rehearsed in the basics. You never outgrow training. In fact, the more of a professional you are, the more rehearsal you do. Think about actors and actresses earning millions or tens of millions of dollars for a picture. They go to rehearsal. And so if you use these techniques, you will be able to learn how to train other people to win. But also you'll know what it takes for you to be trained to win. This is Matt DeMeo, founder of the Maestro Method, reminding you that the fastest way to get to the top is to get off your bottom. Thanks so much for joining me.